The day Howland Reed came to Winterfell, the pools in the Godswood held the morning sky like beaten steel, and the castle woke with that strange hush that comes before bad news rides through a gate. Eddard Stark was in the yard when the first raven arrived, standing with one hand upon the pommel of his sword, while his sons crossed wooden blades below him. Robb Stark came on in a flurry, all lengthening limbs and earnest fury, eager as a hound loosed at last. Jon Snow stood more quietly, less willing to waste motion, his dark head bent, his eyes fixed on Robb's shoulders rather than his sword. Twice Robb drove him back. The third time Jon turned, caught the blow, and slid under his brother's guard to tap him in the ribs. "Dead," Theon Greyjoy called from the rail, grinning as if blood had truly been spilled. "If your Lord Father had wanted a son who could fight, he should have prayed harder." Robb laughed and shoved Jon with the flat of his blade. Jon smiled only a little. Even at 14, he smiled as if sparingly, as if the world might ask payment for it later. Ned watched them in silence. Robb had Tully coloring, auburn in his hair when the light struck it right, blue of eye, quickness of speech. Jon had the Stark look entire. Dark hair, gray eyes, that solemn mouth. There were mornings when Ned could look at the boy from across a yard and feel his heart seize with old grief so hard and sudden that it seemed the Tower of Joy still stood before him, pale and terrible beneath a Dornish sky. Micken's hammer rang at the forge. Stable boys shouted. Far off, a dog barked in the kennels. It was the ordinary music of Winterfell, and for one brief moment he let himself stand inside it and believe that walls and stone and old names could hold back the past forever. Then Maester Luwin crossed the yard in quick gray strides, his chain glinting softly against his robe. The bird sat on his wrist like a bit of darkness with a beak. "My lord," the Maester said, "a raven from King's Landing." Ned knew before the parchment touched his hand that it would bring no joy. He broke the seal and read once, then again more slowly, though the words had already gone through him like cold iron. Jon Arryn dead. The king riding north to Winterfell. For a moment, the clamor of the yard seemed to recede from him. He heard Robb breathing hard from exertion, heard Theon's lazy drawl, heard the rasp of ravens from the rookery tower overhead, and under it all another sound, faint but merciless, from long ago. Lyanna's voice, thin with pain, saying the same 3 words she had made him carry all his life. "Promise me, Ned." "How long?" he asked. "His Grace has already left the city," said Luwin. "They will ride the Kingsroad. Barring mishap, they may be here within a fortnight, perhaps less." "No, Eddie Dole. A fortnight. Time enough for 100 things to go wrong. Time enough for the world to change." "Thank you, Maester." He folded the parchment with great care, as if care could lessen its burden. "See to chambers for the king's train. We will need more stores brought up. Salt beef, fresh ale, barrels from the lower cellar. And have Jory send word to the holdfast nearby. We'll want men on the walls and every stable fit for use." "As you say." Luwin turned away. Jon and Robb had begun again below. Jon drove his brother back this time with a hard series of blows that made the wood clack sharply in the air. The boy had been restless for days. Ned had marked it. There was a hunger in him lately that the yard did not satisfy. A hunger Benjen had only worsened on his last visit from the wall, with talk of ranging and honor and men measured by their deeds, rather than their names. A bastard's hunger, some would have called it. Ned had heard worse. "Enough," he said at last. The boys lowered their swords. Sweat darkened Robb's tunic. Jon's face had reddened with effort, but his breathing was steadier. "You favor one side," Ned told Robb. "Any man with eyes will see it." Robb grimaced and nodded. "And you," he said to Jon, "you wait too long for the better opening. One day there will be none." Jon's mouth twitched. "Then I'll have to be quicker, my lord." "My lord. Not father. Never that before others. Not even here." Before Ned could answer, shouting rose from the gatehouse. Not alarm. Confusion first. And then that particular note of surprise that comes when a thing long absent appears where it should not. A guard came hurrying across the yard. "My lord, there's riders from the neck." Ned felt something close around his heart. "How many?" "5. My lord, Crannogmen by the look. They ask for you by name." Rob's head came up at once. Theon made a face, half curious and half disdainful. "Bog devils," he said. "Have they brought frogs for the king's table?" Ned paid him no heed. Few men of the neck ever came north to Winterfell, and fewer still from Greywater Watch itself. Howland Reed had not set foot beneath these walls since the year the war ended. He turned to find Catelyn on the gallery above, one hand resting lightly on the stone as she looked down into the yard. Even at a distance he knew the line of her shoulders, the stillness that meant her thoughts were moving quickly. She had seen the Raven. She had seen the guard. In 2 moments she had learned that the king was coming, and that some old thing from the neck had come with him, though not by the Kingsroad. Ned handed the letter to Luwin. "Take this to my solar." Then he said to the boys, "Put up the practice swords." Robb obeyed at once. Jon lingered a heartbeat, glancing toward the gate with a sharpness Ned did not miss. The boy's curiosity had always been keener than he let show. "Go," Ned said, softer. Jon went. He crossed the yard beneath a sky the color of ash, and passed beneath the gate arch just as the riders were entering. The horses were small, shaggy creatures the color of muddy water. The men atop them wore leather and faded green and cloaks patched with bog-gray moss. Their long spears were tipped with leaf-shaped heads that flashed dull silver in the light. They looked as if the swamps themselves had risen and taken human shape. The smallest of them rode in front. Howland Reed had never been a large man. Time had not made him larger. He sat his horse with an economy that looked almost frail until one noticed how nothing in him moved without intent. His face was narrow, wind-browned, lined at the eyes, his hair dark still but threaded now with gray. About his shoulders hung a cloak sewn with swamp flowers so faded they might have been stains. Around his throat he wore a leather cord from which a little carved weirwood face hung, old and smooth with touch. For one queer instant Ned was back on the red mountains of Dorne, young and half-mad with grief, with 6 dead friends in the dust and one small Crannogman standing beside him, wet with blood and stubborn as life itself. "Howland," he said. "Ned." The Crannogman inclined his head. He did not smile. "It has been too many years." "It has." Ned stepped forward and gripped his forearm. Bone and sinew beneath damp wool. Real. Present. Dutch. Dangerous. "You've come far. Far enough." Reed looked past him toward the towers and walls, the high stone he had never loved but never mocked. His eyes found the heart tree above the wall of the Godswood as if drawn. "We must speak." So grave a tone from so quiet a man could make a sensible lord shiver. Ned did. "In the hall first," he said, "because men were watching from yard and wall and gallery both. You'll have food and rest." "I have not come for rest." Ned saw then that the others with him were not mere escort. 2 were young men, perhaps near Jon's age but harder in the face, their eyes pale and wary, with nets bound to their saddles and knives in their boots. One older woman rode behind, her hair braided with reeds and tiny bronze bells that made no sound when she moved. Bog charms hung from her wrists. A message then, and one weighted heavily enough that Howland had not trusted silence alone. When they crossed the yard, every eye followed them. Jon had paused at the door to the armory, practice blade still in hand. He stared openly, his dark face intent. Howland's gaze fell on him and stayed. It was no more than a heartbeat, no more than the time a man might take to mark a stranger's age and shape. Yet in that heartbeat Ned saw the bloodless room in the tower again, the bed slick red, the smell of roses and fever, and the child wrapped in bloody linen against Lyanna's breast. Howland looked away first. They did not go to the hall. Ned brought him instead by a side passage and down a narrow way where old stone sweated coolness even in summer, past a storeroom, and under an arch grown rough with age, until at last the noise of the castle dropped away and the gods would receive them in its deep green hush. No sound followed them there, but the faint splash of water in the pool and the whisper of leaves above. The heart tree stood at the center of it all, pale as bone, its red leaves stirring in a wind no man could feel. Howland stopped beneath its carved face. "I would speak where the old gods may hear." "They hear all the same," Ned said, though not harshly. "Then let them hear this plainly." Ned sent the guards away. He waited until they were alone but for the eyes in the tree. "What is it?" Howland took off one glove finger by finger. His hands were small and scarred, nails cut blunt. "My son dreamed." Ned said nothing. "Jojen's dreams are not as other boys' dreams. You know what blood runs in my house." Ned knew. Green dreams, old and perilous as the neck. He had no great liking for such talk, yet he had seen too much to laugh at it. What did he see? A gray direwolf with blood on its mouth standing between a lion and a dragon. Snow falling on a bed of blue roses. A black river full of drowned men, and you? Howland lifted his eyes. He saw you with your throat cut in a hall of red stone, while a boy who was both wolf and dragon stood alone in the cold. The leaves above them shifted with a soft, dry murmur. "Dreams are wind," Ned said at last, though his voice came harder than he intended. "They change shape with the telling." "Some do." Howland did not blink. "Some are warnings." Silence pooled between them. From somewhere beyond the wall came the muffled clatter of hooves and a child's laugh. Ned folded his arms against the chill that had nothing to do with air. "If you rode all the way from Greywater to trade in omens, you wasted your time." "No." Howland's voice softened, and that softening cut deeper than anger would have. "I rode because the king comes north. I rode because Jon Arryn is dead. I rode because the promise you made our Lyanna cannot be buried in one man's breast any longer." Ned shut his eyes. When he opened them, the red face in the tree was looking down on him with its fixed old grief. "I kept him safe," he said. It came out raw. "All these years, I kept him safe. Yes, I gave him a name that would not kill him. Yes, I took the shame and let the world think. Yes." For the first time, Howland stepped nearer. "You did all that honor could do, and more than honor would permit. But if they call you south and you die there, what then? If Robert learns the truth with you in your grave, what then? If the boy is left among those who hate him for what he never knew, what then?" "Nay." Ned's hand had found the trunk of the heart tree. The bark was smooth and cold beneath his palm. The years peeled back, all of them. And he was young again, riding hard over dry hills, with fear in his belly and dust in his teeth. He saw the tower white against the sky. He heard Arthur Dayne bid him yield. He saw Brandon's face, and his father's, both gone to ash and memory. He saw the dead at the tower, the red mountains, his sister's hand on his wrist. There had been blood everywhere. Blood on the floor, blood on the bed. Blood crusted black beneath Lyanna's nails, where she had clutched at linen or pain or life. The smell had been roses and death and milk. He had bent above her. She had tried to smile. She had made him promise. "They will kill him," Ned said quietly. "Robert first of all. Yes. The North remembers what Aerys did to my father, to my brother. Some would hear dragon and want the boy dead themselves. Some would," Howland said. "Some would hear Lyanna and think otherwise." Ned turned away and paced once through the roots, unwilling to look at his old friend, unwilling to look at the tree. "I cannot tell the whole North." "I did not say the whole North." "Whom then? My wife? My maester? My brother? Men whose sons drink with others and their daughters wed?" "And graves do not speak," Howland said. "Would you rather trust to that?" Ned stopped. Somewhere up in the branches a raven croaked once harshly. Howland's next words came very softly. "When you held him first, you were not thinking of crowns." "No." You were thinking of a child who would die for the crimes of men before he could speak. Ned's throat tightened. That child lives, said Howland. He is no babe in swaddling now. Whatever the South may make of his father's name, the North has a right to know whose blood was laid in Winterfell and why. Not all, not the foolish, not the cruel, but enough. Enough that if the storm breaks, he is not alone. Ned thought of Catelyn, thought of the old anger in her eyes the few times Jon's presence had cut too near her pride, thought of the single question she had dared ask once in the first year of their marriage, about Ashara Dane and the harshness with which he had silenced her. He had never spoken to her so coldly before or since. It had wounded her. He had seen it. He had let it stand because the lie had seemed kinder than the truth. He thought of Robb, who loved Jon with a brother's easy heart, and would have to learn that blood could curve in other shapes than boys were taught. He thought of Benjen, who had stood with him in the crypts after the war and spoken Lyanna's name only once before silence took him. He thought of Luwin, dutiful and shrewd. Of Ser Roderick, who would die before he betrayed Winterfell. Of the old names buried below. And above all, he thought of Robert, laughing, loud, dangerous, still speaking of Lyanna as if her grave had not been closed 15 years. At last he said, "Not here, not standing, come inside." Howland did not move. "Will you tell them?" Ned looked at the carved red eyes and saw no mercy there, only witness. "Yes," he said, "I will begin with my lady." Only then did Howland let out the breath he had been holding. "The old gods keep you," he murmured. "They have had their sport with me long enough," Ned said, and left the tree with grief treading step for step behind him. Winterfell seemed to know before its lord did what had changed within its walls. By noon, the servants had begun to move more quietly. By evening, even the hounds in the kennels were subdued, as if the old stones had absorbed the wordless disquiet from the godswood and passed it hand to hand through every passage and stair. Ned did not see Jon again until supper. The boy came in with Robb and Theon, washed and dressed, his hair still damp from the bucket, ghostless because the direwolves had not yet been found and that shape in the world was not yet his. He took his place lower than the high table, near Benjen, who had returned from the wall 2 days before and brought with him a smell of cold air and horse. Jon listened while Benjen spoke of the Shadow Tower and Eastwatch, drinking in every word. He laughed once, low, when Theon made some jest about frozen cocks and vows of chastity. Ned watched the line of his jaw and saw Lyanna there so clearly it hurt. Howland sat at the edge of the hall with his marshmen, eating very little, speaking less. More than once he glanced toward Jon, and away again. Catelyn noticed. Ned knew she noticed because he had lived beside her long enough to read the slightest narrowing at her eyes. When the meal was done, and the household began to drift apart into the business of night, he sent word for her to come to his solar. He had thought on that walk from the Godswood to the tower that the telling itself would be the hardest thing. By the time she entered, he knew he had been wrong. The hardest thing would be to see what the truth made of her face. She came wrapped in a soft blue gown and a darker shawl against the evening chill. Her hair, thick and auburn, had been loosed from its day's binding and caught back simply at the nape. She looked tired. The king's coming had laid burdens upon her too. Kitchens, chambers, servants, stores, linen. The 1,000 practical wars that fall first to a castle's lady. Her hands bore no rings save the one he had given her. "You sent for me," she said. Ned closed the door behind her himself. That alone made her turn more sharply. "What is it?" For a moment he could not answer. The room was small, with one window slit open to the darkening yard. The smell of tallow and parchment lay thick upon it. His desk was heaped with household accounts, letters from holdfasts. The king's raven atop them all like a threat in paper form. He had thought to speak from behind the desk as a lord might. He found instead that he could not put wood between them for this. "Sit," he said. Her eyes moved to the chairs by the brazier. "Ned." "Sit, please." She obeyed, but warily. He remained standing. "Today, Howland Reed came to Winterfell," he began. "I saw He came because the king rides north, and because Jon Arryn is dead, and because there is a truth I have kept from you since the first year of our marriage." Catelyn's face changed then, but not much. A stillness came over it first, a gathering in. What truth? He had meant to speak more carefully. He had meant to lay stones step by step across the water between them. In the end, he crossed it at once. "Jon is not my son." All the color went out of her cheeks. He had imagined anger. He had imagined relief, perhaps, or disbelief. What he had not imagined was the naked confusion that struck her first, like a blow that had no direction. "What are you saying?" "He is my blood," Ned said, because that at least he could say without treachery to the dead. "But not of my body." She rose so quickly the chair legs scraped the stone. "Do not speak in riddles to me. I am not. Sit, cat." "I will not sit." Her voice had sharpened to something almost unsteady. "If this is some late jest of honor, it is cruel. It is no jest." Outside, wind brushed the slit window and made the candle flames bend. He said it plainly then, because anything less would have been cowardice. "Jon is Lyanna's son." The silence after that seemed to strip the room bare. Catelyn stared at him as if the language had ceased to make sense. Then very slowly she said, "Your sisters?" "Yes." "No." She shook her head once, as if to clear it. "No, you would not. Why would you?" "Because his father was Rhaegar Targaryen." The word Targaryen landed between them like a blade thrown to split timber. For a long while she did not move. Ned could see the thoughts passing through her, not because her face betrayed each one, but because he knew too well the roads they must take. Jon died. Lyanna, Rhaegar, Robert die. The rebellion. The screams of Lord Rickard in King's Landing. Brandon strangling himself trying to reach a sword he could not hold. Ash and fire in the ruin of 2 great houses. Her own years under this roof beside a child she had believed her husband's shame. At last she took one step back and caught at the chair, though whether to steady herself or to strike it he could not tell. "Does anyone else know?" "Howland ought. He was with me at the Tower of Joy." "Nah." "And you?" She looked as though she were seeing him from some great distance. "You have known from the first." "Yes." Her laugh was small and hard and without mirth. "All these years." He said nothing. "All these years." The second time it came rougher. "I was the fool of it." "No." She lifted her head sharply. "Do not tell me what I was." Ned received that because he had earned it. "I brought my father's pride into this house," she said. "I thought I knew my husband. I thought the one wound between us had at least the honesty of flesh. A war ended. A boy born. A lapse of honor you would never speak of. I built my anger on that. I lived with it. I looked at him every day and told myself his face was the price of some southern woman's bed." Her voice wavered, then steadied by force. "And all the while, he was hers. Lyanna begged it of me. Do not use her to excuse yourself." The words struck harder than if she had slapped him. "He took them anyway. I am not excusing myself." "Then what are you doing?" "Telling you the truth too late." She closed her eyes. When she opened them, there were tears in them, but no softness. Did she love him? Ned looked at the floor between them. There lay the one question he had asked himself more times than prayer could count, and had never answered fully. Lyanna had died before she could tell him all. The fever had taken her strength as surely as the birthing had taken her blood. He knew fear. He knew urgency. He knew the child mattered to her more than anything left in the world. Whether Rhaegar had stolen or been chosen, whether vows were said before Septon or Hearttree, or none at all. Those certainties had gone into the grave with her. "I know whose son he is," he said. "I know she died to protect him. The rest I know less than songs would have us believe." Catelyn's hand went to her mouth. She turned from him, walked to the window, stood with her back rigid beneath the dark cloth of her shawl. "I remember," she said after a time. The first time I dared ask you about Ashara Dane." Her voice was low now, stripped of its edge and therefore more dangerous. "You looked at me as if I had put filth on your father's bones." Ned shut his eyes. "I had never seen you cruel before. I did not see you cruel again. I told myself it was because her name cut some old shame too close." She gave a bitter little breath. "And the shame was mine. You were trying to understand. I was trying to protect my place in your house. You had that place. Did I?" She turned. "A house built on a lie is a stranger's house, Ned." He had no answer. The brazier snapped softly. A coal shifted in its bed. At length she came back to the chair and sat, though not because he had asked it of her. Her composure returned by degrees, piece by piece, like armor buckled on after battle. "If the king learns this," she said, "he will kill the boy. Yes, and not only the boy, you. Perhaps all of us. Yes." She let that rest a moment. "Does Jon know?" "No." "Will you tell him?" "I must, but not yet." "And what of Robb? Sansa? Arya? Bran? Rickon? If this secret breaks over Winterfell, it breaks over all their heads. That is why Howland came. Robert will ask things of me when he arrives. I know him. He may ask me south. If I go and do not return, I will not leave the boy unguarded by ignorance." At that she looked at him more sharply than at anything else. "You think the king comes to ask you to court? Jon Arryn is dead. Robert does nothing by halves. He will want a new hand, and he trusts me more than is wise." Catelyn's fingers tightened in her lap. "Then the truth cannot die with you." "No, but..." For the first time since entering, she seemed to look not at him but beyond him, toward the shape of what must be done. He loved her for that even then. She had been raised to Riverland's grace and southern ceremony, but beneath it there was iron every bit as true as northern stone. "Whom will you tell?" "Benjen. Lewin. Key. Sir Roderick. Robb. Do." He swallowed. "And some few bannermen I trust with my life." "And with our children's lives?" she asked. "With all of them." She stood once more, but the wildness had gone from her now. In its place was a cold, practical fury he knew far better. "Very well. Tell them. Tell only those who can hold their tongues even in sleep. I will say nothing." There was more in her eyes than consent. There was the beginning of a reckoning he had not yet paid. When she reached the door, she paused. "I was hard on him," she said without turning. Ned could not lie. "Yes. Do not ask me to mend 15 years in one night. I would not." She put her hand on the latch. "No, you would not ask. You would simply leave me to discover the measure of my own sins." Her head bowed once, almost imperceptibly. Lyanna's son. Then she was gone. Ned stood alone in the little room until the candles guttered low. Only when he heard the night watch changing below did he move. On his way to the stair, he passed through the gallery above the hall. Below, a handful of late servants moved trestles back into place. Benjen was speaking softly with Lewin near the hearth. Jon stood a little apart with Arya, who had escaped her septa again, and was leaning against his side with all the fierce ownership of a small sister who had chosen her favorite person in the world. Jon bent his head to listen to whatever she whispered, and when he answered her, Arya grinned up at him. Catelyn had stopped in the shadows at the head of the stair before either child saw her. Ned watched her watching them. Arya had Lyanna's look in ways Sansa never would. The long face, the gray eyes, the wildness that no good gown could tame. Beside her, Jon might have been another echo called from the same blood. Ned saw the recognition strike Catelyn then, not as a lightning revelation, but as 1,000 old moments reordered in an instant. Every time she had thought Arya too much like his dead sister. Every time she had looked on Jon and found him too stark for comfort. The two truths met at last. Jon glanced up, perhaps sensing eyes on him. For one heartbeat he looked directly at Catelyn. She did not flinch, nor did she smile. Yet, Neither did she turn away with the old coldness he had come to expect from her in such moments. She simply stood, one hand closed hard upon the rail, and inclined her head the smallest fraction before going past. Jon frowned after her. Ned felt the world shift by an inch. Sometimes an inch was enough to start an avalanche. He told Benjen before dawn. The younger Stark came to him in the armory yard, still wearing the black leathers of the watch, a half-fastened cloak at his shoulders, and sleep not yet wholly gone from his face. Benjen had always seemed made of lean lines and contained temper, more wolf than lord, with something in him that winter had claimed young and kept. He looked at the summons, looked at Ned's expression, and asked no question until the door closed behind them. "What is it?" Ned did not ask him to sit. "Jon is Lyanna's son." The words had not yet lost their weight from the night before. They never would. Benjen's first response was not disbelief. It was pain, plain, naked. A wound reopened so swiftly there was no chance to hide it. He took one step back. "Lyanna." "Yes." He pressed thumb and forefinger to his eyes. "And Rhaegar." "Yes." The room was cold with old iron and oiled leather. Against one wall stood training shields. Against another, racks of practice swords for boys. Benjen's gaze fell on them and went distant. "I wondered," he said after a long while. "Not that. Never that. But I wondered." He gave a rough little breath. "You came back from war with a child and a face like someone had buried you with our dead. When I asked, you told me only that some promises outlive battles." Ned remembered. Benjen had been younger then, scarcely more than a boy, wild with grief for father and brother and sister both. He had wanted truth and blood and action. Ned had had none to give that would not kill an infant. "I should have told you. Perhaps." Benjen looked up. "Would I have held it better at 16 than I do now?" "You would have held it." Benjen barked a mirthless laugh. "Eh? With both hands and my mouth shut, same as you." He paced once, all restless economy. "Does Jon know?" "No." "Will you tell him before the wall takes him?" Ned stared. "You think he will still go? If he has been longing north for months, why should blood change that?" Benjen's mouth tightened. "Unless you mean to stop him now." "I do not know what I mean to do." "Then decide quickly. Robert Baratheon beneath this roof with Lyanna's son in the yard." Benjen shook his head. "The gods do like cruel sport." Ned told him then of Howland's dream, of the king's coming, of the need to trust some few beyond himself. Benjen listened without interruption. When it was done, he said only, "You'll want Luwin. And Robb. Better from you than from some whisper." So Luwin came next, grave and pale in the morning light, chain clicking softly as he entered the library tower. If Benjen had taken the truth like a reopened wound, the maester took it like a difficult sum suddenly gone monstrous. His brows drew tight. He asked 3 questions in rapid succession: whether Howland Reed swore to it, whether any written proof existed, whether the king had the least suspicion already. Only after the answers came did he sit, fold his hands into his sleeves, and go very still. "From a legal point of view," he said carefully, "what the South will believe, and what is true may be very different matters. I know. If there was marriage, I cannot prove it. And if there was not, or cannot be shown, many would still call him bastard." Ned felt anger flicker, not at Luwin, but at the world. Robert would not ask whether vows were witnessed before he killed the boy. "No," said Luwin quietly. "He would not." The maester's eyes moved to the window slit, where morning had turned the yard to pale gold and shadow. "Then the question is not what claim the boy has, but how many swords your word may buy him if the truth comes out. My word, Howland's word, Lyanna's bones in the crypt." Luwin bowed his head. "And Winterfell's loyalty, perhaps, if you choose well." Ned chose Robb before noon. Of all the tellings, he dreaded most after Catelyn's. Robb loved plainly. He was old enough to understand danger, and young enough still to feel betrayal like a physical thing. They walked the battlements first, father and heir, the wind lifting at their cloaks. Below, men were carting ale casks toward the kitchens and shouting over stores for the king's visit. Beyond the walls, fields rolled yellow-green under the long summer sun. The hot months had endured for years, yet there was already a thread of autumn in the air. "You mean to tell me something bad?" Robb said at once. Ned almost smiled. "Why? You look the same way you did before Mother told Sansa her direst songs about Southern Court." Then Robb's own humor died. "And because you sent Theon away." Ned stopped near a crenelle and leaned his gloved hands upon the stone. "Jon is not my son." Robb blinked. "What? By birth." For an instant, Robb only stared. And in that instant, Ned saw the child still in him beneath the broadening shoulders and the training scars. "Then whose?" Robb asked. "Lyanna's." Robb's face emptied. "Aunt Lyanna and Rhaegar Targaryens." Robb did not speak for several heartbeats. Wind dragged at their hair. From the yard below came the thin ring of steel from a squire's mistake. "He's my cousin," Robb said at last, and his voice cracked on the word as though he had not expected it. "Not my brother. You were raised as brothers." But he stopped himself, swallowing hard. "Does he know?" "No." Robb looked away over the fields. "He should. He will." "And Mother?" "Yes." That made Robb turn sharply. "Mother knows and Jon doesn't?" "Since last night only." Robb took 2 quick paces, then back again. He was trying very hard to be a man. Ned loved him fiercely for it. "All the years she thought you'd fathered him on some other woman." "Yes." "And Jon thought himself a bastard." "Yes." "That's cruel." The word landed true. Ned accepted it. Robb's next breath trembled with anger. "And the king will kill him for it. If he learns?" "He won't. Not from us." There it was. Immediate, absolute, wolf quick. Not calculation. Love. Love. Ned put a hand on his son's shoulder. "That is why I tell you." Robb nodded once, hard. "Then tell me what I must do." By dusk the chosen few had been gathered. Benjen Lewin robbed Sir Roderick Castle with his white whiskers bristling from worry, and Vayan Poole because Winterfell's steward knew the movement of every servant and guard, and because he had been born within these walls, and would die beneath them if need be. Ned took them not to his solar nor the hall, but down into the crypts, where the old kings of winter sat their stone thrones with iron swords across their laps. Torches smoked against the damp. Shadows lay in the hollows of dead faces. It was a place for truths too heavy to bear the light. Howland was already there, standing beside Lyanna's tomb as if the years between had never passed. Sir Roderick crossed himself in the old way at sight of the Crannogman. Lewin's chain whispered when he moved. Robb stood on Ned's right, Benjen on his left. The stone around them held the cold of the earth itself. Ned drew a slow breath. "You all know why I have called you," he said, though in truth they knew only that something grave had brought them there. "What is said in this place leaves it in no tongue. Swear it." They swore. Then he told them, "Some truths, once released, make less noise than one expects." There was no shout, no clatter, no great astonishment fit for a mummer's stage. Only the soft hiss of torch grease and the gradual tightening of all the air in the crypt around a single name. Lyanna. Rhaegar. Jon. Sir Roderick's old hand went to the hilt at his side as if by instinct, though no enemy stood before him. Vayan Poole closed his eyes. Lewin bowed his head. Benjen remained very straight and very still. Robb did not move at all. When Ned had done, Howland stepped forward and placed one palm upon the cold stone of Lyanna's sarcophagus. "I was there," he said, "at the tower in Dorne. I heard her speak. I carried your lord from that place with the child in his arms and death behind us. If you doubt the truth of what he says, doubt me too, and be done with it." No man doubted. At length Sir Roderick exhaled like a bellows. 7, Save us. The old gods, if any, Benjen muttered. Lewin's face was bleak in the torchlight. This is no small danger. No, said Ned. Vayan Poole swallowed. If word spreads among the servants. It will not, Robb said sharply, and the fact that he spoke before the older men surprised them all a little, himself included. Not if we keep our heads. Sir Roderick looked at him, then back to Ned, and a certain grim approval entered his eyes. The boy is Lyanna's blood. He is, Benjen said. Lewin glanced toward the dim carved likeness of Lyanna farther down the passage. The North remembers what Aerys did. Some will hear the father's name and think murder. Others the mother's and think duty. Your choice of whom to trust must account for both. It has, Ned said. I'll tell a handful of bannermen and no more. Men whose loyalty is to Winterfell first. And the boy? Asked Roderick. What of him? Ned looked down the dark line of the crypt, where older Starks sat with stone wolves at their feet. I will tell him myself. But he did not say when. The torches burned lower. One by one they came to Lyanna's tomb and laid hand upon the stone. Benjen first, then Robb, then Roderick with age-stiff fingers, then Lewin, then Vayon. And Vayon. Each swore in turn that no harm done to the son of Lyanna Stark would find willing help in them. When it was finished and the oaths had settled into the bones of the place, Robb remained a moment longer beside the tomb. Ned would have left him there, but Robb spoke softly into the dark. He'll always be my brother, he said. Benjen answered from the stair. The word echoed among the dead like something ancient waking. Word went out from Winterfell under other names. No raven flew bearing Jon's truth in ink. No herald cried it. Instead, riders left at dawn and dusk with messages about stores, harvest counts, walls to be mended, a hunt proposed before the king's coming. The sort of ordinary summons beneath which every lord hides the more delicate workings of his house. Some were called for the king's feast, some for counsel about the road, some for reasons too dull to question. Yet the names Ned chose were not dull names. Galbart Glover came first, lean and dark-bearded, with mud on his boots from hard riding and a hawk's patience in his gaze. He had the look of a man who listened with his whole body and trusted no silence until he had weighed it. Ned received him in a private chamber, told him there what lay on Winterfell, and watched the Glover Lord stand motionless for the better part of a minute before giving his answer. If you say the boy is Lyanna's, I believe you, Galbart said. But if the South learns it, their belief matters more than ours in one respect only. What respect? The killing. Ned nodded. Galbart rested both hands on the table between them. Deepwood will not betray him. Maid Mormont arrived next with one daughter beside her, broad-shouldered Daisy in riding leathers, her dark hair bound back in a long sword on her hip, as natural as another woman's spindle. Bear Island bred little softness in its women or its men. Maid heard the truth by the fire in the solar with no witness but Catelyn, who had asked to remain. Her weathered face did not shift much at names or danger. Only when Ned spoke Lyanna's did her mouth tighten. A girl of the North dies birthing dragon seed, she said at last. And the realm is built on the lie that follows. Her eyes, black and shrewd as a raven's, moved to Catelyn. You've borne it hard. Catelyn met the look without flinching. I have borne it poorly, Maid grunted. Poorly is often how we bear the things men hand us. Then to Ned, if Robert Baratheon comes for the boy, Bear Island will answer as it always answers. With what? Catelyn asked. With bears and women and men who know snow better than kings, said Mage. The same as any other threat. It was not boast. On Bear Island, such words were housekeeping. Jon Umber was the most dangerous telling of all. The great Jon rode in with 24 men, laughing too loud for secrecy and smelling of horse, leather, and old ale, even before he had been offered fresh. He filled doorways. He filled halls. He seemed to fill the air itself. When Ned led him at last into the same chamber and shut the door behind him, Jon Umber looked from one face to the next. Ned, Benjen, Galbart, Maeg, Howland, perched almost invisibly in one corner, and bared his great teeth in suspicion. "Has the king grown wings?" he asked. "You look as if the wall has melted." Ned did not waste time. The great Jon's laugh died midway through its birth. For once in his life, perhaps, he had no ready bellow. When Ned finished, silence held for 5 heartbeats, 6. Then Umber's great hands slapped down onto the table hard enough to make the cups dance. "Rhaegar's get?" he roared. Benjen flinched. Howland did not. "Keep your voice down," Galbart said. "My voice is down." It was not. Maeg leaned back in her chair, unimpressed. "We heard it the first time." The great Jon stared at Ned. "You kept dragon blood in Winterfell all these years. I kept my sister's son alive." The huge man's beard bristled. "And if the lad puts on silver scales and starts breathing fire, how much mead have you had?" Maeg asked. Jon Umber ignored her. He paced once to the hearth and back, each turn making the room feel smaller. Eris burned Rickard Stark, choked Brandon dead by his own madness. And now you tell me Rhaegar left a whelp in your hall? "Me, Banshee, Tar." Ned let him thunder. "Better out than buried." At last the great Jon stopped. "What do you want of me?" "Silence," Ned said. "And your sword if silence fails." Umber's small eyes narrowed beneath their shag of brow. "The boy knows nothing?" "No." "Look, Stark. He is. Acts Stark. He does. Worships your gods." "Yes." "Then what in 7 hells do I care who planted the seed?" The great Jon snorted. "He's Lyanna's blood. That's north enough for me." "Nuncha." The words broke the tension like an axe into ice. Galbart exhaled softly through his nose. Benjen's mouth twitched. Even Catelyn, who had come only at the end to hear what these lords would say, seemed to lose some unseen brace in her spine. Maeg said, "You care who planted the seed because kings care, and kings send armies." "Eh? Well, let them." Umber slapped a hand to his chest. "If Robert wants to come north for a boy reared among wolves, he can. He'll find more teeth than he expects." "This is not talk of war," Ned said sharply. "There will be no crown raised, no banners for Targaryen blood, no songs about the dragon returned. The boy is to be protected, not proclaimed." Howland spoke then for the first time in that room. "The South would hear one whisper of a crown in every silence you make. Speak not of it even in jest." The Grey Jon's eyes shifted to the Cranard man. "You're the witness." "I am. And you vouch it true." "I do." The Umber Lord considered him. Then, to Ned's relief, he inclined that bullhead once. "Then I'll keep it. But if some southern fool so much as glances at the lad wrong, my silence may turn to other things." "No, I keep it a while longer," said Maeg dryly. So the circle widened by degrees, carefully, never enough to be comfortable. Helman Tallhart came and went with his grave soldiers, face gone graver. Leopold Tallhart sent word of his loyalty if called. Serwyn's old lords swore by the old gods and the new both. Notably absent were the Boltons, and Ned meant it to remain so. Roose Bolton had never done him open disloyalty, but there were men one trusted in daylight, and men one trusted only where torches burned and shadows could not multiply. He did not extend the truth to the Dreadfort. All through those days Jon moved among them unknowing. That was the bitterest part of it. The boy would cross a hall and find Galbart's eyes on him with some new thoughtful weight. He would loose an arrow in the yard, and the Grey Jon would clap loud approval on a shoulder that had never interested him much before. He would come in from the stables with straw on his sleeve, and find Mage Mormont measuring him as women do colts and sons, and coming to some hard private judgment. Jon noticed, of course he noticed. He was too keen not to. "What have I done?" he asked Arya one afternoon in the God's Wood as they sat near the pool and tossed crumbs to fish. Arya, small and fierce and all elbows, scowled at the water. "Nothing. Grown men are just stupid." Jon laughed under his breath. That much I know. No, I mean stupider than usual. She kicked at a root. Robb keeps looking at you as if he wants to say something and doesn't. Mother looked at you yesterday and didn't freeze. Bran says Lord Umber called you cub after target practice. That I heard. Well, it's queer. And Sansa says the king is coming and everything has gone mad because of that. Jon plucked a bit of moss from the stone and rolled it between finger and thumb. Perhaps the king will make sense of them. Arya snorted. Kings never make sense. Septa Mordane says princes are graceful and wise. But if Joffrey is graceful, Nymeria is a cat. No, you haven't even met him yet. I know enough. Sansa's already dreaming about songs. Arya lowered her voice into a simpering lilt. The prince has hair like spun gold. Jon grinned outright then, but it faded quickly enough. He had caught Robb watching him. He had felt Benjen's silences lengthen. He had seen Catelyn pause, twice now, as if some old instinct had turned in her and not known which way to face. Even Ned had grown stranger in his nearness, as though each look he gave Jon carried 3 others beneath it. There are truths children feel long before they know them. The body learns weather before the mind names storm. That evening the trusted lords were brought down to the crypts one by one or in pairs, so that no man in the yard would mark too great a company moving together. Lyanna's stone likeness gazed upward beneath her crown of carved roses. Torches burned along the passage walls. The old kings of winter watched from their thrones. Ned stood before his sister's tomb and made no speech grander than the place required. He told them only what must be protected and from whom. Howland swore again. One by one the lords set hands to cold stone and gave their word. Maeg's palm was hard and scarred. Galbart's lingered briefly in silent respect. The great Jon thumped the sarcophagus so hard Benjen hissed for him to remember. He was among the dead, whereupon Umber muttered an apology to Lyanna, and to the dead kings both. Catelyn stood back in shadow, shawled darkly, saying nothing. When the oaths were done, Galbart asked the question the others had perhaps avoided through a kind of northern courtesy. "If the king offers to take one of your sons south," he said to Ned, "which sons can you safely spare from Winterfell?" The chamber seemed to cool another degree. Ned knew the answer at once and hated it. "Robb remains," he said. "Always. Bran is too young. Rickon younger still. Sansa and Arya go if the king insists. Girls are less threat to any court. As for Jon," he looked at Lyanna's tomb and not at the men. "The wall may be the safest place in the realm for him, if matters worsen." Benjen's face went dark. "The wall is not a hiding place." "No," said Ned. "It is a hard road and a hard life." The great Jon rubbed his beard. "For a lad with Stark blood it may suit." Catelyn spoke at last. "If the wall takes him, it also takes from any man the excuse to raise him up. His vows would end questions of inheritance." Maeg's eyes flicked to her. "You've thought on it." "I have had reason." Ned heard the ache beneath the coolness and said nothing. Yet the thought lodged in him like a splinter he could not pull free. Before they parted, Howland said one last thing. "The king comes through the neck in 3 days," he murmured. "My men saw his outriders near Moat Cailin. 3 days. When they climbed out of the crypts, the air above seemed too thin for easy breathing. The king's coming put all Winterfell into motion, and the old lie had to move among ordinary tasks like a knife hidden beneath a feast cloth. Ned rode out the morning before Robert's arrival to execute a deserter from the Night's Watch. He took Bran with him, because a lord's son had to learn that justice was not a thing done by proxies, and Robb because he was near a man grown, and Jon because Jon asked to come with the quiet fierceness that meant he would have gone in his thoughts anyway, if denied. Theon rode too, careless in the saddle, and Jory Castle with a handful of guards. Summer light lay golden on the fields, but the wind came from the north and had iron in it. The deserter was Gerd, a man old in service and older now in fear. Frost had silvered his beard, though it was not yet autumn. He said little beyond begging for mercy and muttering of dead things in the wood. Bran sat his pony very straight, and watched as if will alone could make him older. Robb's mouth had hardened to a line. Theon smirked because he had not been raised to understand such moments. Jon said nothing at all. Ned took the man's head with ice in one clean stroke. That was important. Cleanly, and by his own hand. When it was done, and the blood had gone dark in the grass, Bran asked why the man had been afraid. Because he knew he was going to die, Theon said. Ned cleaned the greatsword before answering. Because he had seen something that broke him first. He did not say he thought of dreams and blue roses and boys alone in the cold. He did not say that all fear looked alike once a man had seen enough of it. They turned for home by a track through the trees. It was Bran who saw the direwolf first, dead beneath a fallen horn and flies already at one eye. The smell stopped the horses. Around the carcass, blind and rooting, lay 5 pups. A dead direwolf south of the wall was omen enough. 5 living pups beside her made Omen into command. There are 5 true-born children, Jory said. The runt dies, Theon answered. Best do it quick. It was Jon who found the 6th. White as frost and shadow, half hidden in the brush, with eyes that opened red as heart's blood. Smaller than the others. Silent where the rest mewled and scrabbled. He was apart from the litter, Jon said, gathering the little creature into his cloak. Or they drove him off. The white one has no brothers, Theon said. Not surprising. It's queer. Jon lifted his head. This one belongs to me. Ned looked from the white pup to the boy holding it. The secret council in the crypt. Lyanna's son. Snow falling on blue roses. Howland's dream. Around them the trusted men shifted uneasily, each perhaps making their own meaning. A white wolf for the hidden boy. The old gods had no shame in their theatrics. You are no Stark, Theon began. Ned silenced him with a glance sharp enough to cut. His mother's dead, Jon said, still crouched by the brush. And her babes have no chance. Better one more than one left alone. He spoke of wolves. Ned heard other things. Theon is wrong, he said. Jon may keep him. Bran cheered. Robb grinned. Even Theon shrugged after a moment and laughed. But among the older men there passed a look too quick for the boys to read. Jory crossed himself. Sir Roderick, who had come later with extra horses, muttered under his breath. Galbard only watched. When they reached Winterfell at last with 6 squirming pups in arms and saddlebags, the horns upon the walls were sounding. Robert Baratheon had come. No matter how long a man has known another, kingship alters the air around him. Robert rode through Winterfell's gate beneath the crowned stag banners of House Baratheon, and the sun of late afternoon struck gilding from helm and buckle and wheel rim all around him. Yet at the center of that rich train, the king himself looked less splendid than immense. Black-bearded, broad-bellied, powerful still despite the softening years, his laughter rolling before him like thunder. He saw Ned at once and roared his name so loudly, men on the walls laughed in answer. Ned, you old frozen bastard. He swung down before the horse had fully halted and engulfed Ned in an embrace that smelled of wine, sweat, leather, and the roads of half the realm. Robert had been handsome once in the blinding, easy way of men built for battle and triumph. The bones of that beauty remained under flesh grown thick and eyes lined at the corners. Yet when he grinned, young ghosts came back to him. You've not changed, Robert said, which was a lie between old friends and therefore a courtesy. You have, said Ned. Robert barked a laugh. Hey, well, kingship feeds a man too well and leaves him no time for wars. Gods, look at this place. All stone and cold and duty. No wonder you never smile. He clapped Robb on the shoulder, tousled Bran's hair hard enough to make the boy beam, kissed Catelyn's hand with boisterous gallantry, peered at Sansa and Arya as if trying to remember how girls looked at those ages, and complained loudly of the road while half the yard bowed. Men dismounted behind him in a glitter of steel and cloth. Cersei Lannister in cloth of gold, fair and hard as a blade honed bright. Jaime beside her with the same bright beauty sharpened into something dangerous. Prince Joffrey all smooth disdain, little Myrcella and Tommen blinking northward wonder. And there, not 10 paces off, stood Jon with the white direwolf in his arms. Ned's blood went cold. Robert glanced at the boy only briefly, seeing as all the world had seen. Dark-haired, plain-clad, a bastard too stark to merit a second thought. The danger did not lie in the king's eye. It lay in memory, in chance, in some careless word from the wrong mouth, or some small resemblance catching fire in the wrong mind. Catelyn must have thought the same, for when Jon took a half-step nearer, perhaps to bring his sisters their pups, her hand tightened almost imperceptibly at her side. Not now, her whole body seemed to say. Jon saw it. He stopped. The moment passed. Robert had turned to shout for wine, but 3 people had marked it besides Ned. Howland Reed from the shadow of the hall door, Tyrion Lannister with a faint speculative tilt of head, and Cersei herself, whose green eyes missed little when a family flinched. That evening, as the castle swelled with the king's train and servants scurried like ants, the pups were named. Sansa She-Grey became Lady, to no one's surprise. Arya named hers Nymeria before the poor thing had even licked its paws clean. Bran laughed and chose Summer. Robb took Grey Wind. Rickon, solemn and suspicious with his wild black curls, chose Shaggy Dog after being warned not to, and therefore loving the name at once. Jon's white pup, who had not made so much as a whimper since leaving the wood, sat apart under the table in the chamber where the boys huddled with them all, red eyes gleaming. Ghost, Jon said, and the name fit like skin. Robb looked up from Grey Wind and smiled. Because he's silent. Because he's white, Arya said. Because he was the one they left aside, Jon answered. The room quieted after that. Later, when the children had gone and the servants had taken the scraps, Catelyn stood a while by the empty hearth where some curls of white fur still clung to the rushes. Ned found her there. You heard what he named it, she said. Yes. He did not know. No. She looked toward the door through which Jon had gone. No, she said again. But this time she seemed to be answering something else. Below them, the great hall filled with the noise of a king preparing to feast. There are feasts that are celebrations, feasts that are truces, and feasts that are battlefields with music. The welcome feast for Robert Baratheon was all 3. Winterfell's great hall had been transformed by fire and labor. Fresh rushes sweetened with mint and lavender covered the floor. Antlers and banners adorned the walls. Oxen turned on spits in the kitchens. Ale frothed in casks rolled up from the lower cellars. Every bench was full, from the great lords and ladies nearest the dais to the men-at-arms farther down, with servants threading between them in a practiced dance of platters and flagons. Ned sat beside the king beneath the direwolf banners, with Catelyn on his other side and the queen glittering beyond Robert in gold and emeralds. The queen's brothers sat close by, Jaime bright and smiling like polished steel. Tyrion lower down where his rank and shape together placed him in perpetual insult. Sansa wore wonder like a veil. Arya looked as though she would rather be anywhere else. Robb endured with the grim patience of boys dragged into ceremony. Bran glowed under attention. Rickon had long since grown fretful and been removed. Jon was not at the high table. That too was part of the old arrangement Catelyn had made years before, and now found herself trapped within. A bastard could not sit among princes without comment, and comment was exactly what could not be afforded. So Jon sat on a bench with the younger squires and lesser sons, near enough for Ned to find him if he looked, far enough that Robert needed not notice him again. Benjen sat not too far beyond, black-clad, watchful. Ned found his eyes strained at Jon more often than was safe. The king drank heavily and well. He laughed at old memories, grew thickly sentimental at mention of men long dead, swore at the North's chill, praised its meat, praised its women more loudly, and before the second course had begun, he demanded to be taken to Lyanna's tomb on the morrow. "I'll pay my respects to your sister," he said, thumping a cup onto the board. "She was worth 10 of any Southron beauties." God. Kid would have laughed to see me now. Nah. Ned kept his face still by force. The crypts are cold. So was she when I last saw her. Robert's grin faded. I should have smashed Rhaegar's chest in twice. Across the table, the queen's mouth curved very slightly, not in sympathy. Catelyn lowered her eyes to her plate. Only the scrape of knives and voices from further down the hall filled the space that followed. Ned knew very well what Robert had done and not done in the war's aftermath. What children he had allowed others to murder in his name. What hatred of dragons he carried not as policy, but as appetite. There were old arguments between them no distance of years had softened. Tonight he swallowed them all. Down the hall, Jon sat very straight over his cup. He had heard. Even above the noise he had heard. Ned saw it in the stillness of him. Tyrion had heard as well. The dwarf turned his head, looked once at Jon, then back at Robert, and smiled into his wine as if at a private jest no one else was fit to share. The feast rolled on. Joffrey sneered at the rustic entertainments. Tommen fell asleep against his nurse. Myrcella clapped politely for a singer whose hands shook under royal eyes. The Greyjohn laughed so thunderously at some ribald tale from one of Robert's stormlords that half the hall laughed with him whether they'd heard it or not. When the third course was brought, Robert leaned toward Ned, face red with wine and heat. I did not come all this way to eat your elk and leave. We have business, heavy business, tomorrow. Ned knew. He could taste it already like ash at the back of his throat. What business, your grace? The sword with quills and crowns and too much shit. Hand's business. Robert waved that aside, impatient with the word already. Tomorrow. Catelyn's fingers tightened around her cup. Meg Mormont, 3 seats down among the northern lords, watched without appearing to. Across the hall, Jon had risen. Ned almost started, but the boy only made his way out among the benches with Ghost at his heels. He moved with that quiet self-containment Ned knew too well. Hurt turned inward, made neat, hidden if possible. Benjen followed him a few moments later. The Godswood took them both. Ned knew because he went there himself before the feast had ended, using the king's drunken attention to some singer as cover for his absence. The night outside had sharpened. Torches burned at the hall doors, and the weirwood leaves rustled like dry blood overhead. He found Benjen and Jon beside the black pool. Ghost sat at Jon's boot, white fur catching moonlight. Benjen stood with one hand on the trunk of the heart tree, his face mostly shadow. You heard enough in there, Benjen was saying. I've always heard enough, Jon answered. Usually from the people who think I'm too far to notice. You are too quick to be wounded. And you are too quick to think wounds do not matter. Ned stayed still in the dark and listened, because there was truth in both of them. And he was tired of forcing silence into every living thing around him. Benjen sighed. The wall doesn't ask who your mother was. Jon bent to stroke Ghost between the ears. That is half its charm. You think it all glory. I think it's a place a man may earn his own name. Benjen was quiet for a while. There's cold and hunger and old men who piss themselves and boys who should have been hanged 3 times before being sent north. There's honor too, yes, if you make it, but don't go making songs of it. Jon's mouth twitched in the moonlight. You'll forgive me if I prefer your hard truths to anyone else's soft lies. Benjen heard more in that than the words alone. He glanced once toward the hall, where faint music leaked through shuttered windows. Hey, he said. That I do forgive. Then Ned stepped forward and made the choice for the moment. Jon. The boy turned. My lord. Leave us, Ben. Benjen's gaze passed from one face to the other. For an instant, Ned thought he might refuse. Instead, he put a hand briefly on Jon's shoulder as he passed and went. Ned stood beside his son, his nephew, his promise made flesh, and looked into the black pool where the hard tree's face floated upside down. The king means to ask me south, he said. I heard. If he does, things may change quickly here. Jon's hand stilled on Ghost's neck. For you, perhaps. For all of us. Jon glanced at him then. In moonlight, the resemblance was stronger, not weaker. Lyanna in the eyes, Brandon in the set of jaw, some trace perhaps of another man in the length of face, but if so, Ned neither knew nor welcomed it. "If I take the black," Jon said, "it will be before winter. Uncle says they may leave soon." Ned's chest tightened. The wall is no place for boys fleeing hurt pride. Jon looked back to the pool. "Then it's fortunate I mean to go for better reasons." And there it was again. That hunger, that stubbornness, that need to carve a shape for himself before the world carved one first. Ned nearly told him then. The words rose all the way to his teeth. "Your mother was Lyanna. Your father was Rhaegar. You were never what they named you." But the king was still in the hall, and the world still balanced on too narrow an edge. "Not tonight," Ned said, though whether to Jon or himself, he could not tell. Jon bowed his head the slightest fraction. "As you say, my lord." Behind them, the feast roared on. Morning came bright and pitiless. Robert went first to the crypts, because kings love the dead when the dead can no longer answer them. Ned led him below with only a handful of guards and the light of 2 torches. The air there was close and cold. Moisture gleamed on the old stone. Iron swords lay across stone laps. Under each crown of lichen and dust, old Stark faces stared into the dark with carved disapproval. The king's bootsteps rang louder than Ned liked. At Lyanna's tomb, Robert stopped. Time seemed to pass visibly through him then, stripping away crown and flesh until for a heartbeat, Ned saw the young Lord of Storm's End who had laughed beside him in the Vale and spoken of tournaments as if war and grief could be held off forever by strength and appetite. He touched the stone with 2 fingers. "She was more beautiful than all of them," he said thickly. "And I was too late." Ned held the torch and said nothing. Robert looked up at Lyanna's carved face. "Rhaegar took everything from me." The old anger rose in Ned like bile. "He took from many." Aye. Robert's mouth twisted. "And I paid him back. But not enough. Never enough." His eyes flared in the torchlight. "If I'd found the last of his get in those days, I'd have dashed them against the wall myself." The crypt grew very still. Ned felt the torch would creak under the force of his grip. Every oath in the dark above, every hand on Lyanna's stone, every secret breath in Winterfell came down to that one sentence spoken casually over her grave. Robert did not know. He had not looked at Jon and seen anything but a bastard with northern eyes. Yet the hatred was there, alive as any beast, and age had fed it more than wine ever could. At last, Ned said, "The dead are done with vengeance." Robert snorted. "You were always too soft for war's proper ending." No, Ned thought. Not soft, merely not savage. When they emerged from the crypts, the yard seemed painfully open. Jon was there by the kennels with Ghost. He had a glove in one hand, and Arya was trying to make Nymeria sit. Robert barely spared them a glance, too occupied with barking for breakfast and complaining of cold stone. Yet Ned noticed Benjen take up position between king and boy without seeming to do so, and Galbart Glover happened to be passing at just that moment, and Catelyn step onto the gallery above where she could see them all. The castle had become an armed silence. It broke by noon. Bran fell from the broken tower just as the sun climbed highest. At first, no one knew what the scream had been. A woman dropped a tray in the yard. Men shouted. Hounds barked into frenzy. Then a stable boy came white-faced and stumbling with the word tumbling from him. Bran, the little lord, he fell. He fell. Everything after happened at once and too slowly. Catelyn ran before anyone else could stop her. Ned followed with Robert and half the household at his heels. The ground below the tower was already crowded. Bran lay twisted in the dust and rushes, small as a broken doll, his blood blackening the stones beneath his head. Ned dropped to his knees. The world narrowed. All the rest went dim. He had seen battlefield wounds. He had held men opened hip to throat. He had watched Lyanna die in a bed of blood. But there is a special horror in a child broken by a fall from one's own walls. It empties a father of speech. Is he breathing? Catelyn asked. Asked no one. Asked the gods. Yes, Luwin answered from somewhere close by. Barely. Move back. Give him air. Robert swore with startling softness. Even Cersei's face had gone pale, though whether from shock or anger at disorder Ned could not tell. Bran breathed. That was all. Once in, once out. Each breath a frail theft from death. They bore him to his bedchamber. Catelyn would not leave. Luwin worked over the boy with herbs and cloth in hands steadier than any other in the room. Ned stood helpless until Robert himself took him by the arm and drew him away, muttering that the maester must have space and fathers were useless in such matters unless called on. The king was right and wrong both. Ned let himself be led because he had no strength to refuse. In the days that followed, all else bent around Bran's bed. The king delayed departure. Hunting parties that had been planned became excuses for royal men to leave the oppressive air of the castle. Jaime Lannister smiled too easily. Cersei's composure turned glass hard. Tyrion vanished into wine and books and half-heard jests. The northern lords kept their own counsel and watched more than they spoke. Catelyn did not sleep. Sansa cried prettily. Arya did not cry at all. Robb tried very hard to be where he was most needed and found that need everywhere. Jon kept to the edges. He came once to Bran's chamber door with Ghost at his side and found Catelyn inside alone save for the sleeping child. The room smelled of sweat and herbs and fear. Candles had burned low in broad pools of wax. Bran's face was white against the pillow, one side bandaged. Catelyn looked as if she had forgotten there were mirrors in the world, and so had ceased to care what eyes showed. Jon hesitated on the threshold. I came to say farewell, he said. Uncle Benjen leaves soon for the Wall. Catelyn looked at him. In the old days, she might have let silence cut him. In the worst of her fear, in another life perhaps, she might have said some cruel thing sharp enough to scar him forever. But those were old days, and the truth had cracked her open in places grief could now reach. He is not dead, she said. No. Then do not speak farewell to me as if you go to one. Jon glanced toward Bran. I wanted to see him. You have. There was still iron in her, still distance, still 1,000 wrong years lying between them. Yet under it Ned heard something else, not kindness perhaps, but restraint wrestling with remorse. Jon shifted, uncertain. That uncertainty wounded Ned more than anger would have. Take care on the wall, Catelyn said at last. And keep out of the king's sight until you go. Jon's brows drew together. Why? Catelyn closed her eyes briefly, as if she had stepped too near the edge of speech. Because this castle is full of dangers enough. He bowed awkwardly. As you say, my lady. When he turned away, Ghost's white tail brushed the doorframe like a bit of snow blown through. Catelyn watched him go with such naked weariness that Ned, who had come silently behind him and heard all, could scarcely breathe. You were kinder than before, he said when the boy had gone. She did not look at him. Do not ask or praise. I ask for nothing. Then hear me anyway. Her eyes fixed on Bran's still face. You must tell Jon before he leaves. Whatever else happens, he cannot go north believing himself only what our silence made him. Ned came to stand beside her. Robert wants me south. He has told you. Today, in the Godswood. And there it was. Robert had come to the heart tree of the old gods, with the breezy arrogance of men who think every sacred place belongs to them if they stand there crowned. He had spoken of duty and old friendship and Jon Arryn dead of some illness he did not care to understand. He had named Ned his hand and expected acceptance with the same certainty with which he expected meat and wine and obedience. Ned had refused. Robert had sworn. Then Robert had spoken of Cersei, of court, of enemies, of the need for a man he could trust. He had invoked Lyanna like a weapon and a plea together. Ned had felt the walls of his life narrowing. Then Bran had fallen and the argument had been suspended, not ended. It waited still. Catelyn seemed to read all this in the set of his mouth. You will go. If I refuse, he will take offense. If you accept, he takes you into a nest of knives. There are knives here too, Ned said, thinking of broken towers and children pushed from windows. He had not yet named his suspicions, but suspicion had rooted. Catelyn's hand rested on Bran's blanket. Then arm the ones you leave behind with truth. That night the trusted lords met again without banners or noise. Benjen was there, and Robb, and Luwin, and the chosen bannerman. Catelyn came late from Bran's bedside, eyes rimmed dark but mind keen. They spoke not only of Jon then, but of succession, of safety, of the Wall, of whether Jon should leave before or after the king's party. The great Jon argued for keeping him close under northern protection. Meg argued that proximity to Robert was madness. Galbart said little until silence made room. The boy wants the Wall, he said. That desire may be useful to us, but if you use it only as a shield and do not tell him why, you make of him a piece on a board. Ned looked at the table's scarred wood. He is not a piece. Then do not move him like one. So simple a rebuke ought not have hurt. Yet it did, because it was true. At last Ned said, tomorrow, before dawn, if I can. Benjen nodded. Robb let out a breath he had plainly been holding. Catelyn closed her eyes. Around them the candles burned down, and the castle slept uneasily under royal and northern roofs alike. Ned found Jon in the yard before dawn, helping Howland ready horses for the long road north. Mist lay low over the stones. The castle's towers rose out of it like something dreamed rather than built. Men moved softly in the half-light, their words muffled by morning cold. Ghost prowled near the stable door with a rabbit in his jaws and red eyes bright as embers. Jon had not slept much. Ned saw it at once in the set of him. The boy's face was leaner than Robb's, always had been, and the sleepless hours carved it sharper still. My lord, Jon said, walk with me. He handed his brush to a stable boy and followed without question. Ned took him not to the Godswood, though that had tempted him, nor to the hall, nor to the yard where any eye might mark their seriousness. He led him instead down and down into the crypts, where the dead kept counsel and old truths had room to breathe. Ghost came too, silent as his name. Torches hissed in their brackets. Moisture slicked the ancient stone. The line of dead Stark kings stretched away into the dark, their iron swords rusting by slow degrees across their laps. Lyanna's tomb lay halfway down, less ancient than the rest, yet old enough now that memory and stone had begun to merge. Jon stopped when he saw where they had come. Why here? Because you began here, Ned thought. Because promises are chains and circles both. Because your mother died beneath another roof. But this is where I laid what was left of her. Instead, he said, there is something I should have told you years ago. Jon's face changed very slightly. Wariness first, then the beginnings of understanding that the world was about to tilt. Ned stood before Lyanna's statue and set one hand upon the cold stone of her tomb. He had rehearsed words and lost them all on the way down. Perhaps that was best. Some truths should not come dressed. You asked me once about your mother. Jon swallowed. You said the next time we spoke you would tell me. I did. And now? And now. Ghost sat at Jon's heel as if he understood the need for stillness. Ned looked at the boy, the man nearly, though not quite, and forced himself not to see the babe in blood-stained cloth overlaid upon him. Your mother was Lyanna Stark. For a heartbeat, Jon did not move at all. Then he blinked, as if the words had struck him in some place behind the eyes, and not yet reached thought. Your sister. My sister. And Lyanna. He said it like a man repeating a foreign prayer. No. Yes. Jon took one step back. The heel of his boot scraped stone. No. Ned let him say it. Denial is a shield. The mind lifts before it dares take the blow. She died in Dorne, in a tower called the Tower of Joy, he said quietly. "I found her there when the war was done. She had given birth not long before. To you." "Manu. How?" Jon stared at him. Then, very softly, "Who was my father?" Ned's own pulse seemed loud in the crypt. "Rhaegar Targaryen." Ghost rose. Not menacingly. Only because something had changed. Jon's laugh was one short broken sound. "That's a jest." "It is not. My father was not Rhaegar Targaryen." The prince's name came bitterly, as if it tasted of every crude song about abducted maidens and every curse Robert had ever thrown. "My father was... he was a prince and the heir to the Iron Throne." Jon's face drained of color. No. Ned had no comfort to give him except truth, and truth was the wound. "I could not tell anyone," he said. "Robert would have killed you, not from justice, from hatred. He hated all dragon blood after the war, and most of all Rhaegar's. So I brought you home and named you mine." Jon turned away, one hand braced on the cold edge of a tomb, not his mother's. His breathing had gone unsteady. "All this time, yes, all this time I was never..." He stopped and swallowed hard. "I was never your bastard." "No. Then why let me be one?" The force of that question shook through the crypt. "Why let everyone think it? Why let me think it? Ned took it because he owed it. Because bastardy was safer than your father's name. Safer." Jon looked back at him, and there were tears in his eyes, though none had fallen. "For whom? For you? For me?" Jon's voice roughened. "You let Lady Catelyn hate me for me? You let Robb be my brother, and not my brother. You let children in the yard call me Snow as if that was all I was. And for what? To keep Robert Baratheon from doing what he did not know to do. No. Yes." The word came out harsher than Ned intended because guilt has its own edge. Jon stared at him, chest rising and falling. "Does anyone else know?" "Yes." A flash of fresh hurt. "Who?" "Your Uncle Benjen, Maester Luwin, Robb, your lady mother." "Do not call her that." The response came instantly, almost savage. Jon dragged a hand through his hair. "She knew before I did. Only recently." "How recently?" "Days." "And the others?" "Days. Most of them. Howland Reed came from the neck. I chose some lords I trust. The king is here. He wants me south. I would not leave you undefended by silence." "Nay, dee." Jon laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "Defended, God's Dewoy." He began to pace the narrow stretch of floor before Lyanna's tomb, 3 steps one way, 3 back. Ghost tracked him with burning eyes. At last he stopped and looked up at the stone likeness of Lyanna. The sculptor had made her younger than Jon had ever imagined dead people could remain. There was no pain in that carved face. No blood. Only a solemn beauty and roses in the crown above her brow. "She was my mother," Jon said, almost to himself. "Yes? She didn't want me dead. She died to keep you from it." That landed. Jon's shoulders bowed as if beneath some invisible blow. "What did she call me?" Ned had wondered whether the question would come. It cut in ways few others could. "There was a name," he said after a moment. "But names can be dangerous things. The name I gave you kept you breathing." Jon's gaze sharpened. "You know." "I know enough. And you won't tell me." "Not now." "Why?" "Because once spoken, some names have a life of their own." Jon stood very still. "So I am to be half a truth forever?" "No." Ned stepped toward him then, breaking the distance at last. "You are Jon. Whatever else the world might have called you, that is the name you have lived, fought, and been loved under. If another was whispered over you in Dorne, it belongs to the dead unless you choose otherwise." Jon's mouth tightened. "Loved, dot. By me, if that is what you mean to ask." The boy's eyes met his. Gray on gray. Stark eyes. Lyanna's eyes. I do mean it, Ned said. I have never lied in that. Something in Jon's face broke then, not into tears, not fully, but into the bewildered grief of a child and the wounded pride of a young man trying to occupy the same skin. I thought my mother might be some serving girl, some fisherman's daughter, some woman from the Vale or the South with eyes like mine and no place in songs. I thought if I ever knew, it would make me less ashamed. Not. He looked around the crypt as if it had become too small to hold what he had learned. Not this. Ned waited. At length, Jon asked the question Ned had dreaded almost as much as the first. Did she love him? There again lay the grave silence. I do not know all that passed between them, Ned said. I know what the realm believed. I know what Robert believed. I know what songs claim. I know only this with certainty. When I found Lyanna, she thought first of you. Whatever lay between your mother and father, she wanted you kept safe. Jon turned that over. Then another thought struck, uglier. And my father? Ned would not shape a gentler lie than the one life had already made. Rhaegar was a prince. By all accounts, he was not mad as his father was mad. He was bookish, grave, skilled in arms, given to melancholy. Some loved him, some cursed him. He is dead. Dead men are easy to make into monsters or saints. I have no use for either. Jon's mouth twisted. He left her to die. Ned did not answer. Sometimes silence honors the dead more honestly than praise. They stood in the chill with the old kings around them and the ghost white wolf between them. After a while, Jon said, Robb knows. Yes. And Benjen. Yes. And Lady Catelyn. Yes. The name of Catelyn passed him more carefully now, as if it had become an object with edges he had not expected. Is that why she looked at me differently? It is. Jon's laugh this time was quieter. I thought perhaps she'd gone blind. Despite everything, Ned almost smiled. Then Jon asked the last question, and perhaps the most revealing of them all. What am I now? Ned could have said bastard no longer. He could have said nephew. He could have said son of prince and wolf-maid, heir to troubles not his own, boy caught between crown and crypt. Instead, he answered as a Stark would answer. You are what you choose to be, he said, and what honor you keep. Jon looked at Lyanna's tomb, then down at Ghost, then back at Ned. If Robert knew, he'd kill me. Yes. If the South knew, some would call me claimant whether I wanted it or no. Yes. And if the North knew more broadly, some would die for me. Ned did not ask how much the boy had guessed from glances and silences. Yes. Jon exhaled slowly. Then the wall is still the best place for me. No, Ned said at once. Do not choose it from fear. I am not. Jon's voice steadied by degrees as he spoke. Or not only from fear. I wanted the wall before this. I wanted a place where my name mattered less. Now I know why I wanted it so badly. Benjen's warning, Galbart's rebuke, Catelyn's hard practicality. All of it came back to Ned in a rush. The wall is hard. It will take more from you than songs admit. Jon's mouth bent in a shadow of old bitterness. It seems I was born for roads that take. Ned closed the distance between them fully then, and gripped the back of Jon's neck, as he had when the boy was small and feverish or raw from a training loss. Jon stiffened, then did not pull away. You were born to live, Ned said. Do not let any crown, vow, or memory turn that into less. For a heartbeat longer, Jon stood rigid. Then, awkwardly, as if he had forgotten how such things were done, he leaned his forehead against Ned's shoulder. Ned put both arms around him. He had not held the boy so in years. When at last they stepped apart, Jon wiped at his eyes angrily and bent to stroke Ghost as if the wolf were somehow responsible. What do I call her? He asked without looking up. Lyanna, Ned said. He nodded. And you? Jon asked after a moment, still not looking at him. Ned understood before the words formed. Father, duh, uncle, my lord. Some new arrangement for an old love. You may call me what you always have, he said. The truth between us does not lessen what has been. Jon gave one hard laugh into Ghost's fur. It changes nearly everything. Yes, Ned admitted. But not that. When they climbed from the crypts, dawn had begun to silver the eastern sky. Winterfell lay between night and morning, and for one brief span of breaths the whole castle seemed suspended, waiting to learn what shape the day would take. News does not alter a castle only at the moment it is spoken. It travels outward through posture, breath, and the manner of looking. By the time the sun was fully up over Winterfell's broken tower, Jon had learned that about truth as well. Robb found him first. They met in the yard where men were buckling packs for the road north and royal wagons for the road south. Horses blew steam in the morning chill. Stable boys ran. Somewhere, Septa Mordain was already calling for Arya and being ignored. Robb came across the yard without pretense, caught Jon by both shoulders and said, "I wanted to tell you." Jon looked at him for a moment, then gave a short, incredulous huff of laughter. "I know." Robb's face tightened. "I hated knowing before you. So did I, once I knew it." For one stretched heartbeat they simply stared at each other, each measuring what had changed and what had not. Then Robb pulled him into an embrace fierce enough to thump their breastbones together. "You're still my brother," Robb muttered into his shoulder. Jon shut his eyes. "Hey," he said, "and you mine." When they stepped apart, both were grinning like fools and trying not to show they had nearly wept. Arya was next. She took one look at Jon's face and knew something had happened, though not what. Arya always knew that much. "What is it?" she demanded. "You look as if you swallowed a candle." Jon crouched to her level. Her braid had already half come undone. Nymeria tugged at her leash with small wolf impatience. "I've learned something about my mother," he said. Arya's expression changed instantly from suspicion to fierce concern. "Was she beautiful?" Jon laughed. Despite himself. "Everyone says so." "Then that's good. I suppose it is." Arya put both small hands on his cheeks and peered at him. "Are you sad?" "Yes." "Are you glad?" Jon thought of Lyanna's stone face, of Ned's arms around him, of Rhaegar's name falling like doom into the crypt. "Yes." Arya considered that with all the seriousness of 8 years. "Then it's important." "It is." She nodded, satisfied that she had reached the heart of it, and let him go. "Sansa says everyone important looks miserable. Maybe that's why." He flicked her ear. "Go torment your septa." Arya skipped away, and Jon felt his heart ease for the first time since dawn. Catelyn met him by chance, or by design, in the gallery above the hall an hour later. No servants were near. Sunlight striped the floor through narrow windows. From below came the booming noise of Robert calling for horses. Jon stopped. She stopped. For years, such moments had been contests of endurance disguised as courtesy. Now they were something stranger and more fragile. "My lady," Jon said. She studied his face and knew at once that Ned had told him. For a long breath, neither spoke. Then Catelyn said, "I should have spoken differently to you all these years." It was not apology. It was more difficult than apology, because it did not ask forgiveness or excuse itself with tears. Jon had thought about this on his way up from the crypts. He had thought of every cold glance, every exclusion, every room where her children sat nearer her than he ever would. He had thought of Bran's bedchamber and the altered tone in her voice. He had thought of his own resentment, long kept like a little banked fire. "I don't know what to say to that," he answered honestly. "Nor I." She looked away toward the yard where her husband's life was already being packed into wagons and saddlebags. "But I will say one thing. Whatever else your father was, your mother was a Stark of Winterfell. No one can take that from you." The words struck him harder than he expected. "Thank you," he said after a moment. Catelyn inclined her head, queenly and weary all at once. Guard yourself on the wall. There were 20 other things he might have said. About the years between them. About hatred mislaid and damage too old to mend neatly. About whether she had ever once tried to see him as a child, rather than a stain. In the end, he said none. Some reckonings are too large for a stair landing. Instead, he bowed. And you, my lady. When she passed him, the sleeve of her gown brushed his hand. The touch was accidental, perhaps, but it felt more startling than an embrace would have. The household divided itself into departures. Robert's train for the south, Benjen's for the wall. Hunters, guards, wheelwrights, cooks, wagoners, girls, grooms, books, armor, casks, bolts of cloth, and all the small encumbrances by which noble people drag their lives across kingdoms. Tyrion Lannister announced over breakfast that he meant to ride north with Benjen for a look at the wall. Robert cursed him as a fool. Tyrion bowed and called himself a curious fool. The queen looked as though she would sooner have sent him to sea in a leaky barrel. Jon listened from the end of the table and wondered whether the dwarf had guessed more than was safe. Tyrion's eyes were too sharp by half. Yet if he had guessed, he gave no sign beyond a brief crooked smile as he raised his cup in Jon's direction. Before noon, Ned called the trusted bannermen to the Godswood one last time. Not all could stay longer. Some would ride with the king, some home, some north. The Heart Tree watched them gather beneath its red leaves. Galbart, Gay, Mage, the Great Jon, Benjen in black. Robb, solemn now with burdens he had not held a week ago. Catelyn came and stood apart beneath an oak. Howland lingered like a bit of the swamp made human. Jon had not expected to be summoned. When he understood why, he wished briefly he could still be ignorant. Ned did not speak to him as to a lord or claimant or symbol. He placed him simply before the men and women who knew and said, "This is the son of Lyanna Stark. You know the rest. He rides north under my protection and my trust. While he draws breath, none who swear to Winterfell will betray him." It should have embarrassed Jon. Perhaps it did. Yet more than that, it unsettled him to see such hard old faces turn toward him, not with pity or contempt, but with something like recognition. The Greyjohn went to one knee so heavily the turf shook. Not for long, not in a manner that proclaimed king-making, but enough that the meaning was plain. "For Lyanna's sake," he said gruffly. "And yours, boy." Jon stared. "My lord, you need not. Need has now to do with it." Meg stepped forward next and laid one calloused hand against his shoulder. "Bear Island remembers the women of the north," she said. "We remember their sons too." Galbart did not kneel. He simply clasped Jon's forearm in a soldier's grip. "Choose carefully," he said. "The world will try to choose for you." Benjen's turn came last among the bannermen, though he was family, and not bannerman at all. He looked at Jon for a long while before speaking. "At the wall you will be my nephew if any man asks too closely," he said dryly. "It's near enough to truth for black cloaks." Jon laughed, despite the knot in his throat. Then Robb came and embraced him before all of them, as if daring any person there to think less of either for it. "Right if you can," Robb muttered. Jon nodded once. He was past speech. Howland did not step forward until the others were done. When he did, he drew from beneath his cloak a small thing wrapped in worn linen. Unfolded, it proved to be no jewel and no proof for courts, only a strip of blue silk faded nearly gray with years. The cloth had once been richer than anything Jon had touched in his life. Now it was soft as breath. "This was tied around your swaddling when Ned carried you from Dorne," Howland said. "Your mother had torn it from something of hers. I kept it because there are some things grief refuses to cast away." Jon took the strip with both hands. Blue as winter roses. For the first time that day, tears rose, and did not stop at the eyes. He bowed his head. No man there mocked him. Several looked away in respect. Ned said quietly, "Keep it hidden." "I will." By then, the horns were sounding for Robert's departure. The castle gates stood open. Banners cracked. Horses stamped. The southbound road and the northbound road seemed for one strange moment part of the same long fate before they forked into different griefs. Jon went first to Arya. She waited by a side door with Nymeria squirming at her feet, and an expression of such fierce importance that for a moment he forgot everything else. "I've something for you," he said. From inside his cloak he drew the slim sword he had had Mikken make in secret, balanced for a child's hand, narrow and quick, with a grip wrapped in dark leather. Arya's mouth fell open. "It's not a toy," Jon told her. "You'll have to practice every day." Her fingers closed around it reverently. "What's it called?" He looked at the small blade in her smaller hand, and thought of all the things the world would try to make of her, and all the ways she would slip them. "Needle. Dye." Arya laughed aloud, bright as water over stone. Then she flung herself at him with such force he nearly lost footing. He held her tight. "Don't let them make you stupid in the south," he whispered. "Don't let them freeze you into a block at the wall," she whispered back. When he pulled away, her eyes were wet. She scowled at the wetness as if it were someone else's fault. Sansa kissed his cheek because courtesy required it, and because she was gentler than she often seemed. "Be well, Jon. You too." Rickon hid behind Shaggy Dog until Jon knelt and let the little boy press a stubborn kiss to Ghost's head. Bran still slept upstairs, unreachable except in prayer, and for him Jon could do nothing but pause beneath the tower window and look up once. At last there was nothing left but to mount. Ned stood by his horse in the yard, already dressed for the road south, ice strapped in its case, face closed in the way it did when duty and pain had become indistinguishable. Catelyn stood above on the gallery, one hand on the rail, Bran's absence beside her like a wound in stone. Robert shouted for more wine as if a journey were a feast delayed. The Queen's wheelhouse gleamed. Jaime swung easily into the saddle. Tyrion grinned from his pony, delighted by movement toward novelty. Benjen waited at the head of the northern line, black cloak stirring. Jon put his foot in the stirrup, then paused. Ned came to him. There was no time for long words. Perhaps there never had been. "Keep your counsel," Ned said quietly. "Trust Benjen. Trust your own honor before any man's praise." Jon nodded. "And remember," Ned added, his voice lowering further, "whatever blood is in you, the North raised you." Jon looked at him, at the man who had carried a lie for 15 years and love inside it, and found that his voice worked after all. "You raised me." For the briefest instant, Ned's face softened. He put a gloved hand to Jon's cheek, once, not caring who saw, and stepped back. Jon mounted. Ghost trotted at his horse's side, white against dark earth. Benjen turned north. Tyrion fell in with them, glancing back once toward the royal train with a smile that said he had escaped something tiresome. Robb stood on the wall above, one hand gripping stone. Arya was below him, needle hidden under her cloak and her chin set like war. As Jon rode through Winterfell's gate, the men on either side bowed their heads. Not deeply, not uniformly, but enough. Enough that he felt it like a hand at his back. He did not look around to see who had ordered it, because no one had. The gesture had risen out of them as naturally as mist from the hot springs. Halfway down the road he did look back. Winterfell stood gray and ancient against the pale sky. Towers layered over crypts, godswood over graves, children over promises. On the battlements Robb was still there. On the gallery Catelyn remained motionless as stone. In the yard below Ned turned south toward the king, and for a heartbeat the two roads cut one world into two. Jon touched the hidden strip of blue silk inside his doublet. Ghost padded on in silence. Behind him lay a castle that had learned his truth. Ahead lay the wall, the king, the south, the long unraveling of all things. And beneath the oldest stones of Winterfell, Lyanna Stark kept her silence, while the north, at last, began to keep hers. The road north from Winterfell was rutted from summer carts and hard as iron where the morning had not yet warmed it. Jon rode with Benjen in silence for the first league. Tyrion's pony clopping somewhere behind, and the Black brothers' small escort stretched out among them in dark wool and leather. Ghost moved like a pale thought over the roadside grass, never straying far. The silence was not empty. It was crowded with all the things a boy becomes a man too quickly carrying. He had thought once that if he ever learned the truth of his birth, it would come as release. The world loves that tale. The hidden child, the secret parentage. The moment when shame falls away and identity shines clean beneath it. The world lies. Truth did not free him. It bound him to more people, more graves, more dangers than he had owned the day before. Yet there was freedom in it too, though not the kind songs would make. He knew now that he had not been born of Ned's dishonor. He knew that Lyanna Stark had held him. He knew that his life had been bought by promise and guarded by one man's silence, until a whole cold kingdom had taken that silence into itself. Knowledge could wound and still be mercy. Two things could be true. Benjen seemed content to let him think. Only when Winterfell had shrunk behind them to a dark shape among woods and fields did he say, "How are you holding?" Jon gave a half laugh. "Poorly, if I tell it plain. That's a beginning. I think I'd prefer a middling. You'll have to settle for beginning. Middlings are for older fools." Jon glanced at him and found a trace of sympathy tucked under the dry words. "Did you know all this time?" Benjen looked ahead. "No, not all. Some part perhaps by instinct. I knew Lyanna's death left our brother with a look no other grief alone explained. But I did not know the shape of it. Not until yesterday." "Nay." Jon turned that over. "Did it change how you saw me?" Benjen considered. "No, it changed how I saw Ned." That answer, so unexpected in its honesty, made Jon bark a startled laugh. Tyrion looked up from his saddle with interest and then looked away again, tactful for once or merely bored. After another stretch, Benjen said, "If you take the black, take it because you mean it, not because you think your blood demands exile." "No." Jon's hand closed over the hidden silk beneath his cloak. "It may demand caution. Caution is not the same as surrender." "No," Jon admitted, "but I am still going." Benjen nodded once, then go with open eyes. South behind them, the Kingsroad carried Robert toward the Riverlands, the Trident, and the capital where Jon Arryn's death waited like an unanswered riddle. Jon could not see that road now, yet he thought of Ned upon it with an ache that felt older than morning. For years he had resented the distance between them, the carefulness, the never-named barriers. Now each of those old hurts had been turned over to show the fear beneath. Love does not always arrive in a gentle shape. Sometimes it comes armed with lies, and spends itself in sleepless nights while the beloved sleeps safe. Tyrion drew alongside before noon, his pony stepping briskly despite its short legs. "You ride as if you left half your heart behind," he observed. Jon eyed him warily. "Did you learn that in a brothel or a book?" "In both," Tyrion said cheerfully. "Brothels make one attentive to expression. Books explain it later." Benjen snorted. Tyrion glanced from one stark face to the other, and perhaps marked the family resemblance that had always been there, and now seemed to Jon loud as a bell. If he did, he gave nothing away. "The wall should improve your spirits," he said. "Nothing lifts gloom like 700 feet of ice and men who have forgotten women exist." "Some of them forget manners too, I hear," Jon replied. "Oh, those are the better ones. Manners in black are often disguise." Tyrion's smile thinned into something shrewder. "Still, a man may learn himself at the end of the world, especially if who he is proves more complicated than expected." Jon's spine went stiff. Benjen's horse shifted slightly closer. Tyrion spread his small hands. "Do not look as if I've stolen your small clothes, boy. I know nothing except that your house is full of silences thick enough to choke a mule, and that you looked at Lord Eddard this morning like a son taking leave of a father for the first time." He arched one brow, or perhaps the last. Jon said nothing. "That," Tyrion sighed, "is exactly the sort of silence I mean." "Very well. Keep your mysteries. I collect them for amusement, not use. Ah. He dropped back then, humming tunelessly. Benjen watched him go. Never mistake wit for harmlessness. I won't. They rode on through stands of pine and birch where shafts of light striped the ground, and spiders had hung new webs between branches. Somewhere a hawk cried. Somewhere else men were building a hayrick and stopped to stare as the black column passed. None of those small folk knew what rode among them. To them, Jon was only another northern youth bound for the wall, with a strange white wolf and a face that carried Winterfell plainly. There was comfort in that anonymity. There was danger too. If he forgot, it could be stripped from him. At midday, they watered the horses by a stream. Jon sat on a flat stone and drew out the scrap of silk at last, keeping it hidden in his palm. Blue, warm, soft. He had no memory tied to it, and yet it tugged at him with unreasonable force. His mother had touched this, had torn it from some gown or blanket in pain or urgency, had chosen, perhaps in a room full of fear, to wrap her child in one small remnant of herself. Ghost put his muzzle against Jon's wrist. He folded the silk again. I know, he murmured, though whether he spoke to the wolf, the dead, or his own unruly heart he could not have said. By afternoon the castle was far behind, and with distance came thought clearer than the raw ache of morning. He saw more sharply now what knowledge required of him. The North had not bent knee to him. Ned had forbidden it, and the lords had obeyed. Yet in their eyes had lain something perilously close to possibility. Lyanna's son, Rhaegar's son, Robert's hatred. A boy hidden under a bastard's name, and now discovered by those with enough power to make his existence into a cause if they were fools or desperate men. He could not let that happen. Not because he lacked curiosity about what he might have been. Not because some secret pulse of pride did not stir at being more than a stable whisper made flesh. He was 14, not stone. The notion that dragon blood ran in him, that kings might trace lines toward his name, was heady and terrible all at once. But headiness was a Southron weakness. In the North, men learned early that dreams must answer to winter. The Wall answered. The Wall ended claims. It took bastards and trueborn sons alike and wrapped them in the same black wool. It was danger, exile, brotherhood, service, and hard anonymity. It was also, now, a shield not only for him but for the people who had carried his secret at such cost. He loved them for that more than he knew how to bear. Toward evening, the riders made camp in a small clearing ringed with tall pines. Fires were laid. A rabbit snared by one of the Black Brothers turned on a spit. Tyrion drank and complained about roots under his blanket. Benjen checked saddles himself. Jon fed Ghost scraps of meat and watched sparks climb into a darkening sky. When the others had settled into the ordinary mutters of camp, Benjen came to sit beside him on a fallen log. "You are quieter than usual," he said. "I'm usually quiet. You've found a deeper well then." Jon smiled faintly. For a while they listened to the fire. "Did you love her?" Jon asked at last. Benjen did not pretend confusion. "Lyanna? Oh, we all did." "No. What was she like?" Benjen leaned his forearms on his knees, looking into the flames. "Stubborn, wild, better with horses than with sewing. Quick to laugh when she forgot herself. Quick to anger when someone else forgot themselves. Brandon was fire in the open. Lyanna was fire under snow." His mouth softened. "Arya has some of her in her. So do you, I think." Jon swallowed around a tightness in his throat. "Did she sing?" "Badly." That made him laugh, and the laugh turned suddenly dangerous with grief. He bowed his head. Benjen let the silence take it. After a time he said, "Whatever else came of her life, know this. She was not a woman to forget her child. If she died to keep you, then keeping you mattered more than all the rest." Jon nodded. The stars came out one by one above the pines. The air grew colder. Somewhere in the dark, an owl called. In Winterfell, far south of that camp, though not so far as Jon would have liked, Ned rode beside Robert under the lengthening light and thought of the son-nephew promise he had sent north. Catelyn sat beside Bran's bed and listened for each breath, carrying new guilt beside old fear. Robb took his first supper as acting lord in all but name, while men twice his age watched to see how his shoulders bore it. Arya lay awake with needle hidden under her pillow and imagined every road at once. Sansa dreamed of princes still because she was young enough not to know that dreams are only kind until they meet men. Howland Reed turned his horse back toward the moving swamps of home, satisfied only insofar as any man can be satisfied after setting a long-buried truth walking in the world. And in the crypts below Winterfell, where torch smoke had clung for generations to stone, Lyanna's likeness kept her calm young face turned upward while kingdoms shifted above her bones. The North knew now. Not all of it. Not yet. But enough. Enough that if ravens flew from court with warrants and lies, they would not find one man standing alone before the storm. Enough that if Robert's old hatred stirred to appetite, Winterfell would not gape in confusion at the danger, but close ranks around it. Enough that a boy raised as bastard might ride into black vows carrying not only shame and hunger, but the fierce inconvenient love of a family in a region that had chosen, however cautiously, to claim him. Jon lay down at last with ghost curled white at his side, and the strip of blue silk hidden safe against his chest. Sleep did not come easily. When it did, it brought him no dragons. It brought him a girl in a bed of blood and roses whose face he could not quite see, and a voice saying nothing he could hear, only reaching. He reached back. At dawn, he woke with tears dried cold at his temples, and the strange certainty that whatever else the wall gave or took, he would not arrive there as the same boy who had left Winterfell's gate. Behind him, the south rode toward treason, crowns, and knives. Before him, ice rose waiting. And somewhere between those destinies, a secret had become a bond, and the bond, in time, would become a war.